On my 60th birthday, my son threw an envelope of money in my face and told me, "Consider this your last gift from today on. You are on your own." I just smiled, took the envelope, and then handed him a blue folder that I had kept hidden for years. When he opened it and saw the contents, his face lost all color. What was inside would change our lives forever. But before we continue, make sure you are already subscribed to the channel Elderly Stories and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories are reaching. My name is Sarah. I am 60 years old, and for a long time I believed I had done everything right as a mother. I raised my son Daniel alone since he was 3 years old when my husband abandoned us for a younger woman. I worked 2 jobs for years, cleaning houses during the day and cleaning offices at night. My hands became rough. My back hurt constantly, but I did not care. All I wanted was to give Daniel a better life than mine. I managed to pay for a good private school for him, always with sacrifice. There were months when I only ate beans and rice so he could have meat on his plate. Other times, I wore the same old clothes while I bought him brand-name shoes, so his classmates would not make fun of him. When Daniel entered business school, I sold the only asset I had, left a small plot of land I inherited from my mother. It was everything I had, my only security for the future. But I thought, what do I need it for? My son is my future. Daniel graduated with honors and quickly got an excellent job at a multinational company. I was so proud. Finally, all those years of sacrifice had been worth it. Or at least that is what I thought. In the first few months after starting work, Daniel still came to visit me at our simple apartment in the working-class district. He brought some groceries, paid a bill or two, but over time the visits became more and more spaced out. Then 2 years ago, he met Rachel. She came from a wealthy family, lived in a luxury gated community, and clearly did not approve of me. The first time we met, the way she looked at my small and modest apartment, my old furniture, and my simple clothes said it all. I was an embarrassment, a housekeeper who did not fit into the sophisticated world my son now inhabited. After Daniel started dating Rachel, everything changed drastically. The visits ceased almost completely. When I called, he was always busy, always with important commitments. When I insisted, he got irritated as if my call were a nuisance. 6 months ago, they got married in a lavish ceremony. I went, of course, but I felt completely out of place. Rachel sat me at the back of the hall, far from her family and the important friends. Her wedding dress cost more than what I earned in years of work. After the wedding, Daniel practically disappeared from my life. I continued living alone in the same apartment where I raised him, subsisting on the small pension I received after decades of manual labor. It was not much, but I managed. What hurt was not the lack of money, it was the lack of him. It was knowing that my son, for whom I sacrificed everything, was now ashamed of me. Then came my 60th birthday. I did not expect anything grand. In fact, I did not even expect Daniel to remember. But to my surprise, on the eve of my birthday, he called me. He said he wanted to see me, that he had something important to talk about. My heart filled with hope. Maybe he had realized how distant he was being. Maybe he wanted to get close again. I tidied up the apartment as best I could. I bought a simple cake at the bakery and even put a clean tablecloth on the kitchen table. When the doorbell rang, my heart raced. I opened the door with a smile, but what I saw froze me. Daniel was there, but his face was cold, distant. He did not even hug me. He just walked in and stood in the living room as if he was in a hurry to leave. "Hello, Mom," he said without emotion. "Happy birthday." "Daniel, it is so good to see you, son. It has been so long," I began, but he interrupted me. "Look, I cannot stay long. I came here because I need to tell you something important." He reached into the pocket of his expensive suit and pulled out a thick envelope. Without ceremony, he threw the envelope onto the kitchen table right in front of the birthday cake I had bought. I looked at the envelope, confused, and then at him. "What is this $10,000, he said, crossing his arms. "Consider it your birthday gift and also a severance package, so to speak." Severance? My voice came out trembling. What are you talking about, Daniel? He sighed as if he were dealing with a stubborn child. Mom, I will be direct. Rachel and I are building our life together. We have plans, goals, and honestly, we can no longer keep supporting you emotionally and financially. You are an adult. You already receive your pension. It is time for you to go your way and for me to go mine. Every word was like a stab wound. I felt my legs weaken. Supporting me, son. I never asked you for anything. I always managed on my own. Exactly. Then you can keep managing on your own. He looked at his watch. Those $10,000 will help you for a few months. After that, I really need you to understand. You are no longer part of my life. Rachel made it very clear that she does not want to have to deal with this situation. Situation. Tears began to burn my eyes. I am your mother, Daniel. I raised you alone. I gave up everything for you, and I thank you for it, he said. But his tone was icy mechanical. But now it is time for each of us to follow our own path. I do not want more visits. I do not want more calls. I need to focus on my family now, on my wife. He turned to leave but stopped when I spoke. My voice came out firmer than I expected. Wait. Daniel turned around impatient. What? I walked to the bedroom, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. For years, I kept that folder. Part of me hoped never to have to use it. But another part, the part that was always wiser than I wanted to admit, knew this day might come. I took the navy blue folder from the back of the closet and returned to the living room. Daniel looked at me with impatience. Mom, I really have to go. I also have a gift for you, I said, handing him the folder. Open it. He took the folder with an air of disdain, as if it were just another sentimental nonsense from a dramatic mother. But when he opened it and his eyes began to scan the documents, I saw the change. First confusion, then shock, and then pure terror. What is this? His voice came out hoarse. These are documents, I said calmly. Documents that prove that everything you have today, everything you have conquered, was built on a lie. Daniel flipped through the papers frantically. His face was getting paler and paler. I watched in silence, feeling a strange mixture of pain and satisfaction. Pain because my son had turned into this. Satisfaction because finally the truth was coming to light. These documents. I began to explain, my voice surprisingly calm, prove several important things. First, the company where you work and got your meteoric rise, I know the owner. His name is Richard Towers. I worked in his house for 15 years, cleaning, cooking, taking care of his children when they were small. Daniel looked at me in disbelief. So what? So what? I continued. That 3 years ago, when you were desperate looking for a job after college, I went to see Richard and I begged him. Literally, I begged him on my knees to give you a chance. He owed me favors, many favors. I knew things about his family, things he did not want to come to light, so he agreed. He hired you not because you were brilliant, but because he owed me. That is a lie, Daniel stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. It is all documented there. Emails, messages, even an audio recording of my conversation with Richard. He confirms everything. I pointed to one of the papers, and there is more. That promotion you got last year, that huge bonus that allowed you to put the down payment on the luxury apartment where you live with Rachel, was also because of me. I saw his hands shaking as he held the papers. I continued, relentless. 6 months before your promotion, Richard came to talk to me. He said he was considering firing you because you were not delivering the expected results. Your reports were mediocre. You were more worried about impressing the bosses with expensive clothes than with real work. So I made another deal with him. What deal? Daniel's voice was almost a whisper. I offered to work for free in his house for a year without salary. In exchange, he would not only keep you in the company, but would give you a promotion and a generous bonus. I needed the money, Daniel. My pension barely covered the rent. But I accepted because I thought I was helping my son build his future. I saw a tear fall down his face, but I did not feel pity. Not yet. During that year, I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, receiving nothing. I ate his family's leftovers. I wore old clothes until they fell apart. And do you know what I told myself? It is for Daniel. It is so he can have a better life. But do you know what you were doing in that same period, son? He did not answer. He just looked at me with wide eyes. You were spending that bonus at expensive restaurants with Rachel. You were buying designer clothes. You were posting photos on social media, showing off a life of luxury. And when I called you, asking just to talk, because I felt lonely, you said you were too busy. Mom, I did not know, he began, but I raised my hand. There is more. Do you remember that car they gave you last year? That luxury SUV that Rachel wanted so much? His face went even paler. Rachel said it was a bonus from the company. Lie, I said simply. In that same month, Richard called me again. He said you had asked for a huge loan, that you had debts because of your lifestyle. The company was considering firing you for financial misconduct. It could affect your reputation and theirs. So once again, I interfered. No. His voice came out strangled. I sold the last jewels I inherited from my mother. They were the only things of value I had left, the only physical memories I had of her. I sold everything and gave the money to Richard so he would pay your debts quietly. In exchange, he gave you that car, saying it was recognition for your exceptional work. Daniel fell sitting onto the chair, the folder still in his trembling hands. He looked at the documents as if they were a death sentence. And about Rachel, I continued, feeling my voice harden. The woman for whom you are abandoning me. Do you know why her family accepted you? A common employee of a multinational without a great fortune, without important connections. He shook his head, unable to speak. Because I made friends with her housekeeper. I discovered that Rachel's father was being blackmailed for an extramarital affair. There were photos evidence. I got that evidence through contacts I made over the years working in rich people's houses. And I offered a deal. I would destroy the evidence if he gave his blessing to your marriage and treated you like a worthy son-in-law. He accepted. The expression on Daniel's face was one of complete shock. He seemed to have aged 10 years in those minutes. So, son, I said, my voice becoming firmer, everything you have today, your job, your promotion, your car, your marriage to Rachel, your luxury apartment, was built by me, not by you, but by me, the housekeeper you are ashamed to call Mom. He tried to speak, but the words did not come out. Finally, he managed. Why did you do all this? Because I loved you, I replied. And for the first time, I felt my voice waver. Because you were my son, and I believed I was doing the best for you. I believed that if I gave you all the opportunities I never had, you would be happy, that you would be a better person. But I was wrong. Tears were now running freely down my face, but I did not wipe them away. I let Daniel see my pain, my disappointment, my resentment. I raised a monster. I raised someone who values money and status above everything. Someone who discards people when they are no longer useful, and the fault for that is mine. I spoiled you. I protected you too much. I gave you everything without making you work for anything. And now you come here on my birthday to give me $10,000 as if it were charity and tell me to get out of your life. Daniel was crying now too, his sobs loud and desperate. Mom, I did not know. I swear I knew nothing of this. And if you knew, would it make any difference? I asked, my voice cutting. Would you have treated me better? Or would you still be ashamed of the woman who cleaned houses to give you a better life? He did not answer, and that silence said it all. These documents, I said, pointing to the folder. also include some interesting things about you. Do you remember that financial report you created and that impressed your bosses so much last year? The one that got you that additional promotion? His face paled even more if that was possible. I know you committed plagiarism. I found the original report from an intern who was fired shortly after. You stole his work, changed some details, and presented it as yours. It is all documented here. I have the original files with the creation dates, emails, everything. Mom, for the love of God. And there is more. Those expenses you charged to the company account last year. The trips, the dinners, the networking events, I have proof that at least half were personal. You were taking Rachel to romantic dinners and charging it to the company. Technically, that is fraud. Daniel was completely devastated now. He covered his head with his hands, rocking back and forth. So this is what is going to happen, I said, taking the envelope with the $10,000 and pushing it back towards him. You are going to take this money, you are going to get out of here, and you are going to think a lot about the kind of person you have become. Mom, please do not do this. I'm not going to expose you, I said, and I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Not yet, but I am going to keep all these documents very well guarded, and if you ever need a reminder of where you came from, of who put you where you are, here I will be. Not because I want revenge, but because I still have hope that one day you will wake up and realize what really matters in life. Daniel sat there for a long time with his head in his hands, sobbing. I watched my son crumble and felt a confusing mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to hug him, comfort him, tell him everything was okay. That was the mother in me, the one who always ran to wipe his tears when he fell at the park. But another part, the part that had been humiliated and rejected minutes ago, remained firm. "How did you get all this?" he asked. Finally, his voice muffled by his hands. "How did you know?" I sat at the kitchen table across from him. I was tired not only from that moment, but from years of carrying the weight of secrets I should never have kept. "Daniel, you think housekeepers are invisible, do you not? That we are just part of the furniture without eyes, without ears, without intelligence?" My voice held no accusation, only statement. For 30 years, I worked in the houses of the richest and most powerful people in this city. I saw everything, I heard everything. The couples fighting in the next room while I ironed the calls about shady business deals, while I cleaned the office, the family secrets while I organized their papers. He lifted his face to look at me, eyes red and swollen. I was not stupid, son. I was just poor, and there is a big difference between those two things, although people like you and Rachel cannot understand it. I sighed, feeling the weight of the years on my shoulders. I was always careful. When I realized you were changing, that you were pulling away, I began to prepare. I documented everything, every favor I asked, every sacrifice I made. Not because I planned to use it against you, but because— my voice failed, because I was afraid that one day you would forget me completely. "I never forgot you," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You erased me, Daniel. Systematically, you erased me from your life. When your co-workers asked about your family, you said your parents had passed away. I know because Richard's daughter goes to school with Rachel's cousin and they talk." He closed his eyes. More tears fell. He did not deny it. "At your wedding, when Rachel sat me at the back of the room, you said nothing. When her mother treated me as if I were just another employee hired for the event, you said nothing. You simply allowed it. You let them humiliate me because it was easier than admitting that your mother was a simple cleaning lady." "Rachel said it would be better that way," he murmured. "She said your presence being too visible could cause embarrassment." "My presence?" I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Son, I gave birth to you. I carried you for 9 months. I went through hours of labor without anesthesia because we did not have money for a private hospital. I breastfed you even when my breasts bled. I raised you alone when your father abandoned us. And now my mere presence is an embarrassment." He had no answer for that. "Do you know what was most painful?" I continued. "It was not even the physical distance. It was realizing that you are ashamed of me. Ashamed of the woman who gave up her own life to build yours. I could have married again, you know. After your father left, I had proposals. Good, hard-working men who wanted to take care of me, but I always refused. Because you were my priority. You were my life project." Daniel was destroyed. I could see in his eyes the weight of guilt settling in, and part of me felt satisfied with it. But another part, the maternal part that never truly dies, felt pity for him. "Mom," he said finally, his voice broken. "What can I do? How do I fix this?" It was the question I expected, but for which I did not have a simple answer. "I do not know if you can fix it, Daniel. I do not know if I can forgive, but I will tell you what is going to happen now." I took the folder back and held it firmly. "You are going to leave here. You are going to go back to your life of luxury, your beloved wife, your expensive apartment, and you are going to think. You are going to think a lot. But what about those documents? Are you going to—" "I am not going to do anything," I interrupted him, "for now. Because despite everything, I am still your mother, and mothers have this curse of loving their children even when they do not deserve it. But that does not mean I'm going to allow myself to be trampled on again." I got up from the chair, my body aching from fatigue and emotional tension. "Here are my conditions. You are going to keep your distance. I do not want your fake calls, your visits driven by guilt or fear. When and if you are ready to have a real conversation, to see me as a person and not as an embarrassment to hide, then you can come back. How long? As long as it takes for you to grow up, son. For you to understand that character is not bought with money, that dignity is not measured by designer clothes, that a person's value lies not in their last name or the address where they live." Daniel stood up, wobbling. He seemed to have aged years in that conversation. He took the envelope with the money from the table, but I saw the hesitation in his movements. "Mom, I really did not know anything about the favors, about the sacrifices. If I had known. But you would not know how to make the difference, would you?" I looked directly at him, because even without knowing the details, you saw my sacrifices. You saw when I ate little so you could eat well. You saw when I wore patched clothes while buying you expensive shoes. You saw all that, and you simply accepted it as if it were your right, as if I existed only to serve you. He did not deny it, because he knew it was true. Go, Daniel, and this time do not come back until you can look at me without feeling shame. Not shame for what you did, but shame for what I am. When you can introduce me to your rich friends and say, "This is my mother, she was a housekeeper all her life, and she is the strongest woman I know," then you can come back. He walked to the door slowly, as if every step hurt. At the threshold, he turned one last time. "I love you, Mom." "I know," I replied softly, "and I still love you too. But love is not enough when respect is missing. Now go." The door closed behind him, and finally I allowed my legs to give way. I sat on the floor right there, leaning against the wall, and I cried. I cried for the wasted years, for the lost illusions, for the pain of discovering that my son, my only family, had become a stranger. But I also felt something different, something I had not experienced in a long time, a strange sense of freedom. For years, I had bowed down, sacrificed, annulled myself in the name of motherhood. And now, for the first time, I had set limits. I had defended my dignity. I had said no. The birthday cake was still on the table, intact with its unlit candles. I got up from the floor, wiped my tears, and lit the candles. For the first time in 50 years, I made a wish just for me. I did not wish for Daniel to change. I did not wish for wealth or an easier life. I wished for strength to rebuild my life, not as someone's mother, but as Sarah. Simply Sarah. As I blew out the candles, I felt something inside me shift. Perhaps it was the end of a cycle, or perhaps it was the beginning of something new. Only time would tell. 3 weeks passed since that night. 3 weeks in which my phone remained silent with no calls from Daniel. Part of me hoped he would show up, that he would knock on my door begging for forgiveness. Another part was sure he would simply go on with his life, relieved not to have to keep up the charade of caring about his mother anymore. In those weeks, something in me began to change. I woke up in the morning, and for the first time in decades, I did not think of Daniel first. I did not wonder if he was eating well, if he was happy, if he needed anything. It was liberating and terrifying at the same time. I started doing things I had never done before. Simple things, but things I always sacrificed in the name of saving money for my son. I went to the movies alone, something Daniel always said was sad and pathetic. I bought a new dress, nothing expensive but pretty, which made me feel good. I even started attending a crafts group at the neighborhood church, where I met other women with stories similar to mine. It was there in the crafts group that I met Mrs. Grace. She was 70 years old with completely white hair and a smile that lit up her face. She had also been a housekeeper all her life. She had also raised children alone, and she had also been abandoned by them when they progressed in life, as she said with irony. "It is always the same story," Mrs. Grace told me while we embroidered together one afternoon. "We kill ourselves working. We give everything for the children, and they grow up believing they deserve all that it is our obligation. And when we are used up, when we get old and tired, they discard us like old clothes." "And how do you deal with that?" I asked, genuinely curious. Mrs. Grace had a serenity I envied. "I learned to build my own life," she replied, her skillful fingers working on the embroidery. "I learned that being a mother is part of who I am, but it is not everything. I am Grace. I am a woman who likes plants, who embroiders well, who makes delicious apple pie. I am more than just someone's mother." Her words stayed with me. I was more than Daniel's mother, but for so long I had defined myself only by that role that I did not even know who Sarah was anymore. It was on one of those afternoons at the group that my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello, Mrs. Sarah." The voice was female, young, nervous. "Yes, who is speaking?" "My name is Chloe. I work with your son, Daniel." My heart raced. "Did something happen? Is he okay?" "He is physically fine," said Chloe, and there was something in her voice that put me on alert. "But I need to talk to you personally, if possible. It is important." We agreed to meet at a downtown coffee shop the next day. I spent the whole night sleepless, imagining what that girl would want. Was it some message from Daniel? Was he sick? Had something serious happened? When I arrived at the coffee shop, I recognized Chloe immediately. She was sitting in a corner, nervously stirring her cup of coffee. She was young, maybe in her 20s, pretty, with the air of someone carrying a weight too great for her shoulders. "Mrs. Sarah." She stood up when she saw me. "It is me." I sat across from her. "What happened? Is Daniel okay?" Chloe took a deep breath. "I did not know if I should do this. I have been thinking for weeks, but when I found out about you, well, I thought I had to tell you." "Tell me what?" She looked around as if making sure no one was listening. "I have been working in Daniel's department for 2 years. I was the one who made that report." "The report he stole and presented as his own." I felt my blood run cold. "You know about that." "Not only do I know, but I have proof," she said, pulling a folder from her bag. "I have the original files, emails, everything. When I found out what he had done, I was furious, but I was just an intern. No one was going to believe me against an established manager, so I kept the evidence waiting for a chance. And now he is doing the same thing again," said Chloe, her eyes flashing with anger. There is a new intern in the department, Julia. She is brilliant, works late, does incredible analysis, and Daniel is stealing her work too. I already saw him copying files from her computer, modifying them and presenting them as his own in meetings. I felt my hand grip the coffee cup so hard I thought it was going to break. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I heard his conversation with Rachel the other day," said Chloe, lowering her voice. "They were talking about you. Rachel was laughing, saying it was a relief to get rid of the embarrassing old woman. And Daniel agreed. He said it was the best decision he made, cutting you out of his life." Every word was a stab wound, but I kept my face neutral. "And there is more," Chloe continued. "They are planning to sue you. Sue me." "Why?" "Rachel found out about the documents you have. I do not know how, but she knows, and she is convincing Daniel to start a legal process against you for, well, her exact words were blackmail and extortion. They say you are using false information to try to get money from him." I laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. "Of course they are. Because God forbid my son has to face the consequences of his actions." Chloe looked at me with compassion. "Mrs. Sarah, I do not know you, but anyone who works with Daniel knows that he is, well, not a good person. He steals others' work, treats subordinates badly, and only got to where he is through connections and manipulation. When I found out about you, what you did for him, and saw how he is treating you now," she shook her head, "I could not stay silent." "What do you want me to do with this information?" "Honestly, I want you to expose him," said Chloe with vehemence. "Not just for me or for Julia, but for all the people he hurt along the way. He needs to face consequences, and if you have additional proof, along with what I have—" She pushed the folder across the table. "We can make him lose everything." I took the folder, feeling its weight. It was tempting. So tempting. Daniel had used me, had discarded me, and now planned to sue me. Part of me wanted revenge, wanted to see my son lose everything like I lost everything for him. But another part, the part Mrs. Grace was teaching me to listen to, hesitated. "I need to think about this," I said finally. "I understand," nodded Chloe, "but Mrs. Sarah, do not take too long. The lawsuit they are preparing against you can be filed at any moment. And when that happens, you will need to defend yourself." I returned home with Chloe's folder, feeling the weight of an impossible decision on my shoulders. I had in my hands the power to destroy my son completely. Not only reveal his past schemes, but also the current ones. With my evidence plus Chloe's, Daniel would lose his job, his reputation, possibly even face legal proceedings. But he was my son. And despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal, a part of me still remembered the little boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mother in the world. That night, sitting in my small kitchen, I spread all the documents on the table, my evidence on one side, Chloe's on the other. It was an arsenal of devastating information. Compromising emails, stolen files, documented testimonies, everything I would need to destroy Daniel. I picked up my phone, looking at the screen for a long time. I had the contact of a lawyer I met years ago, one of the sons of a house where I worked. He had given me his card saying if I ever needed legal help, I just had to call. I could do this. I could call him, hand over everything, and let justice take its course. But my hand trembled not from fear, but from doubt. If I did this, there would be no turning back. It would be the definitive end of my relationship with Daniel. I would be choosing justice over my son. I would be choosing my dignity over maternal love. The phone rang, making me jump in fright. It was Mrs. Grace. "Sarah, dear, is everything okay?" Her warm voice filled the line. "You left the church so rushed today I got worried." I told her about Chloe, about the new evidence about the lawsuit Daniel planned against me. I told her everything in a flow of words, my voice breaking at some moments. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Then Mrs. Grace said something that changed my perspective. Sarah, do you know what my biggest mistake was with my children? What I always protected them from consequences. Always. When they stole at school, I paid quietly and never allowed them to be punished. When they failed, I blamed the teachers. When they got into trouble, I resolved everything behind the scenes. I thought I was being a good mother, but actually I was creating adults who never learned responsibility. Her words resonated with me because I had done exactly the same with Daniel. When my children abandoned me, she continued, it was not out of cruelty. It was because they never learned that actions have consequences. They never learned empathy because I always made everything easy for them. And when I was no longer useful to make their lives easy, when I became a burden instead of a solution, they discarded me. So, do you think I think you should do what is right, not what is easy, said Mrs. Grace gently. Your son is hurting other people. He is destroying the careers of innocent young people, and he is planning to hurt you legally. If you do not act now, when will you? After hanging up, I stared at the documents again. Mrs. Grace was right. This was no longer just about Daniel and me. It was about Chloe, about Julia, about all the other people Daniel hurt and would hurt in the future if no one stopped him. I made a decision. But it would not be impulsive revenge. It would be calculated fair and would give Daniel one last chance. The next day, I took all the evidence and went to Richard Tower's office. The secretary tried to stop me, but I told her it was urgent. Richard, upon seeing me, was visibly uncomfortable. Sarah, I need to talk to you, now. My voice left no room for discussion. In his luxurious office, I put the folders on his desk. You owe me, Richard. You owe me years of favors I did without asking for anything in return. Now I am asking for something. He leafed through the documents. His face grew paler and paler. My God, Sarah, Daniel is doing this. He is. And he will keep doing it if someone does not stop him. You hired him because of me. Now I need you to do the right thing. What do you want? I want you to investigate officially. I want you to do a full audit of his work. I want you to give the people whose work was stolen the credit they deserve. And I want Daniel to face the appropriate consequences within the company. That will ruin his career, you know. He is ruining other people's careers, I said firmly. And if you do not act, I will take this outside the company. I will go to the press, to the regulatory authorities, wherever necessary. Richard sighed heavily. All right. I will open an internal investigation. But Sarah, are you sure he is your son? Precisely for that reason, because I love him, I need to let him face the consequences of his actions. It is his only chance to become a better person. The investigation began quietly. Richard was careful but thorough. He called Chloe and Julia for testimonies. He reviewed all of Daniel's work from the last 3 years. He cross-referenced dates and files. And what he found was even worse than I imagined. Daniel had not stolen only from Chloe and Julia. He had done it with at least 5 different employees over the years. Some had left the company out of frustration. Others were fired when they complained. Daniel had built his entire career on the work of others. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Richard. Sarah, I need to inform you. We are going to fire Daniel tomorrow with cause. The evidence is irrefutable. And more than that, some of the people he hurt are considering legal action. My heart shrank, but I knew it was the right thing. Thank you, Richard, for doing the right thing. Sarah, are you sure you do not want me to mention your involvement? He will never know it was you who... He needs to know, I interrupted. He needs to know that his actions have consequences. And he needs to know that I'm no longer going to protect him when he is wrong. The next day, Daniel was called into Richard's office. I was not there, but Richard told me later what happened. Daniel walked in confident, thinking it would be another promotion. After all, he had just submitted another brilliant report. Richard put all the evidence on the table. The original files, the testimonies, the dates proving the plagiarism. Daniel tried to deny it at first, but the proof was undeniable. He turned pale, then red with rage, then pale again. "Who did this?" he must have asked, according to Richard. "Who turned me in?" And Richard told the truth. "Your mother." Apparently, Daniel was in shock. He did not believe I was capable, that I, who always protected him, always cleaned up his messes, would have the courage to expose him. She handed over documents showing not only what you did here, but also the expense fraud, the previous plagiarism, everything, explained Richard. And you know what is most ironic. She could have destroyed you completely weeks ago. She had all this information, but she only acted when she learned you were hurting other innocent people and even planning to sue her. Daniel was fired instantly, without severance, without references, with a permanent mark on his professional record. Richard also informed him that the company would not sue him criminally if he returned all bonuses received improperly and signed a confidentiality agreement. But that did not stop individual victims from suing him. That night, my phone exploded with messages. First from Daniel, a frantic sequence of texts. "How could you do this to me? You destroyed me. I am your son. I will never forgive you for this." Then came Rachel, even more poisonous. "Jealous old woman. You cannot stand seeing your son happy. We are going to sue you for everything you have, which is nothing anyway. You are going to pay for this." I read all the messages in silence. I did not reply. There was nothing to say. They wanted me to feel guilty, to bow down and beg for forgiveness. But I felt no guilt. I felt peace, because for the first time in my life I had done what was right instead of what was convenient. I had protected the innocent instead of protecting my son from his own actions. And if that meant Daniel would never speak to me again, then so be it. The following days were a storm. Daniel's story leaked in the company, and as these things usually leak, it reached the social circles where he and Rachel moved. The fall was spectacular. The luxury apartment depended on the salary he no longer had. The expensive car would be sold to pay debts. The designer clothes, the expensive dinners, the lifestyle Rachel loved so much, everything vanishing. Chloe called me a week after the firing. "Mrs. Sarah, I just wanted to thank you. Julia and I received credit for our work, and the company is implementing new protocols to prevent this from happening to other people." "I am glad something good came out of this," I said sincerely. "There is something you need to know," hesitated Chloe. "Daniel is... well, he is in bad shape. Rachel broke up with him 3 days after the firing. Apparently, she was not interested in an unemployed husband with no prospects, and her family cut all ties." I felt a pang of pain hearing that, but no surprise. "How do you know that?" "He showed up at the company yesterday trying to talk to Richard. Security had to escort him out. He was disoriented, looking unkempt, very different from the always impeccable Daniel we knew." After hanging up, I sat for a long time thinking. Daniel was paying the price for his actions, but the cost was higher than I had imagined. And despite everything, despite all he did, he was still my son. But Mrs. Grace had taught me something important. Loving someone does not mean protecting them from consequences. Sometimes the greatest act of love is allowing them to fall so they can learn to get up. 2 weeks after the firing, my door was assaulted by frantic knocking. When I opened, there was Daniel. But it was not the impeccable Daniel who had visited me on my birthday. It was a destroyed version of him. Unshaven beard, wrinkled clothes, red and swollen eyes. "Mom." It was all he could say before crumbling. He literally fell to his knees at my door, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood there watching him, my heart divided. Part of me wanted to help him inside, hug him, tell him everything was okay. But another part, the part that was learning to value herself, hesitated. "Daniel." My voice came out firmer than I expected. "Why are you here?" "I lost everything," he sobbed. My job. Rachel, my apartment. They are going to foreclose on my debt. I have no one. I have nothing. And what do you want? For me to solve everything again, for me to save you once more. He lifted his face, surprised by my coldness. You are my mother. Yes, I am. And it was precisely because I am your mother that I did what I did. I crossed my arms. You are not here because you want to apologize. You are here because you need something from me again. This is not fair. Not fair. My voice rose. You stole the work of innocent people. You damaged careers. You humiliated me. You rejected me. You planned to sue me. And I am not fair. He remained silent, still on his knees at my door. If you want to enter this house, I said slowly, it will have to be with honesty, no excuses, no justifications. You will have to admit what you did not just to me, but to all the people you hurt. And you will have to tell me, are you here because you feel genuine remorse or just because you are desperate? Daniel stayed there fighting with himself. I could see the internal battle in his eyes. Finally, he whispered, I do not know. I do not know anything anymore. It was the first honest answer he gave me in years. I stepped aside. You can come in, but I am not going to solve anything for you this time. You created this mess. You will have to clean it up. He walked in, stumbling, sitting in the old armchair in the living room where he grew up. For a long time, we stayed in silence. Finally, he began to speak. I do not know when I became this person, he said with a choked voice. When I started working, it was so intense. Everyone around me came from rich families. They had studied at the best schools. They had connections. And I had nothing. Just the name of a father who abandoned us and a housekeeper mother. I felt the stab of the words, but let him continue. So when I saw the opportunity to not take a shortcut to pretend I was better than I really was, I took it. And it worked. People respected me. Rachel noticed me. Finally, I felt important. And I asked softly, where did I fit into that new important life? He closed his eyes. You were a reminder of where I came from. And I was ashamed of that. I was ashamed of you. Tears ran down his face. I am a monster. Rachel was right when she said that before breaking up with me. She said I was an empty man with no character who was only worth something because of the money. Rachel was wrong, I said, and he looked at me surprised. You are not empty. You made terrible decisions. You hurt many people, including yourself. But that does not mean you are irreparable. How do I fix this? How do I go back? You do not go back, I said honestly. You cannot undo what you did. But you can do differently from now on. You can apologize genuinely to the people you hurt. You can work to pay your debts honestly. You can rebuild your character even if it takes years. And you, his voice was small, can you forgive me? I sighed, sitting in the chair across from him. Daniel, I already forgave you. I forgave you the moment I made the decision to expose you. Because I understood that loving you meant not allowing you to continue destroying yourself and others. But forgiveness does not mean we will go back to what we were. Maybe we never will. I do not deserve your forgiveness. Probably not, I nodded. But I do not forgive you because you deserve it. I forgive you because carrying that weight of anger and resentment is hurting me. I forgive you for me, not for you. Daniel cried, then really cried. Not manipulative tears or self-pity, but tears of genuine regret. And for the first time in a long time, I felt I was seeing my real son, not the mask he had built. You can stay here tonight, I said finally, but tomorrow you have to start fixing your life. I will help you, but not in the way you are used to, not solving your problems, not making things easy for you. You are going to have to work for real this time. The following months were the hardest and paradoxically the most transformative for both of us. Daniel stayed sleeping in my armchair for a few weeks while trying to get back on his feet. It was not easy for either of us. I had to constantly resist the urge to solve everything for him to protect him, as I always did, and he had to learn to do basic things he never needed to do. I got him a temporary job at a cleaning company, yes, cleaning, where I worked all my life. The irony was not lost on either of us. "You want me to be a janitor?" he asked, incredulous, when I told him about the vacancy. "I want you to understand the value of honest work," I corrected, "and to feel in your own flesh what I felt all my life. When you clean an executive's office and he does not even notice your presence, you will understand how I felt being invisible all my life." Daniel accepted the job not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. The first days he came home, exhausted hands, rough back aching. He complained constantly. "How did you do this for 30 years? He asked me one night, falling into the armchair. "Because I had something to fight for," I replied. "I had you. I had the hope of a better future. Do you have something to fight for now?" He stayed silent, thinking. "I do not know." "Then find out. Because without a real purpose, you will go through the same cycle again. You will look for shortcuts, you will want to go back to the easy life, and you will not manage to rebuild yourself for real." Over time, something began to change in Daniel. He began to talk to the other cleaning staff to listen to their stories. He met Maria, a 40-year-old woman who supported 3 children alone on a cleaning salary. He met Michael, a 55-year-old man who had lost his job at a factory and now did cleaning work so as not to lose his house. And he met Anna, a 20-year-old girl who studied at night while working during the day, dreaming of being a teacher. Those people whom Daniel would have ignored completely in his previous life were now his colleagues, and they had something he never had: dignity in work, pride in supporting their families honestly, and an empathy that comes from struggling for real. One night, Daniel returned from work with a different shine in his eyes. "Mom, today I helped Anna with math. She was having trouble with a college subject, and I remembered the things I learned. And do you know what was incredible? She was so grateful, so happy, as if I had given her something truly valuable." I smiled. "You did. You shared knowledge without expecting anything in return. That is more valuable than any stolen report." He nodded thoughtfully. "I was thinking when I recover financially, when things settle down, I wanted to do something different. Not go back to the corporate world. Maybe help people like Anna who are trying to improve their lives." It was the first time I saw Daniel genuinely thinking of others. Meanwhile, I was also changing. With Daniel living with me temporarily, I had to set clear limits. I did not cook for him every day. He had to learn to make his own food. I did not wash his clothes. He had to take care of himself. And when he tried to fall into old patterns expecting me to make everything easy, I firmly said no. It was hard. Every fiber of my being as a mother wanted to take care of him, protect him. But I knew that if I did that, I would only be repeating the mistakes of the past. Mrs. Grace was my anchor during that period. "You are doing the right thing," she assured me when I doubted. "Helping is different from doing for him. You are helping him grow, not preventing him from falling." 6 months after Daniel's firing, we received an unexpected visit. It was Chloe, accompanied by Julia. "Mrs. Sarah Daniel," began Chloe, visibly nervous. "We came because, well, the company implemented a mentorship program for young professionals. A program to teach professional ethics, real teamwork, those things. And Richard suggested that Daniel could be an example. An example of what not to do?" asked Daniel with a bitter smile. "No," spoke Julia for the first time. "An example of how to recover when you make a mistake, of how to accept consequences and rebuild yourself. You lost everything, Daniel." And instead of running away or getting worse, you are working honestly rebuilding your life. That is something young professionals need to see. I looked at my son, seeing the surprise and emotion on his face. You want me to go there and tell everything? How I stole work. How I was dishonest. Yes, nodded Chloe. And how you are paying for it. How you are learning Richard believes this can prevent others from doing the same. And it can maybe open a path for you to eventually return to the market when you prove you have truly changed. Daniel looked at me, seeking guidance. I just smiled. It is your decision, son. He accepted. And 2 weeks later, I was in the audience of Richard's company auditorium watching my son on stage. He was visibly nervous, but his voice was firm. My name is Daniel, and I destroyed my own career. He began. I stole the work of innocent colleagues. I lied about my skills. And I hurt many people in the process. I am here today not to ask for forgiveness, but to tell the truth. And the truth is that I did all that because I was more worried about appearing successful than really being it. He told everything. The plagiarism, the fraud, the firing. But he also told about the work afterward, about working as a janitor, about learning humility, about discovering that real value does not come from titles or salaries. The most successful person I know, he said, looking at me in the audience, is my mother. She worked 30 years as a housekeeper. She never had a fancy title, she never earned much money. But she has something that took me a long time to understand. She has dignity. And dignity cannot be stolen, bought, or faked. It has to be built through honest choices day after day. Tears ran down my face. For the first time in years, I felt proud of my son, not for the fake successes he had achieved before, but for the courage to admit his mistakes publicly. After the talk, several young professionals came to talk to Daniel. He answered all questions with brutal honesty, and when a young woman asked if he believed he would one day return to success, he gave an answer that showed how much he had changed. I do not know if I will have a high position or a big salary again, he said, and honestly, that is not what I want anymore. I want to build something real, even if it is small. I want to help people, not use them, and I want to make my mother proud of me, not for my bank account, but for my character. A year after that devastating night of my birthday, my life was completely different. Daniel no longer lived with me. He had managed to rent a small room near work, but he visited me regularly, not out of obligation or necessity, but because he wanted to. Our conversations were different now. Real. He told me about the challenges of work, about colleagues, about his dreams of someday opening a small tutoring center for low-income people who wanted to enter college. And I told him about my life too, about the crafts group, about the friends I made, about plans to finally travel a bit with the pension I was saving. Do you know what is funny? Daniel told me one day while we drank coffee in my kitchen. When I had it all, the apartment, the car, the high salary, I was miserable. I was constantly anxious, afraid of being discovered, having to maintain a facade. Now, living in a tiny room, working in a humble job, I sleep peacefully for the first time in years. It is because now you are honest, I said. You no longer need to sustain lies. He nodded. Rachel called me the other day. Can you believe it? She called, what did she want? Apparently, she broke up with her new rich boyfriend and was missing me. He made air quotes with his fingers. She said she was willing to give me another chance if I got back on the right track. And you... I blocked her number, he said simply. I realized I never loved Rachel. I loved the idea of her, the status she represented, but not the real person. And she never loved me either. She loved what I could give her. It was a sign of maturity I never thought I would see in my son. The interns, Chloe and Julia, became our friends. They visited me occasionally, bringing cakes and talking about their lives. Chloe had been promoted, Julia was about to graduate, and both always emphasized that the company ethics program, started after Daniel's case, was making a real difference. You know, Mrs. Sarah, Julia told me once, "What your son did was terrible. But what you did exposing him, even being his mother, saved many future careers, including mine and Chloe's." Richard also eventually became an unexpected ally. He sought me out months after everything, saying he wanted to make peace with his conscience. "Sarah, for years, I used you, paid you poorly, overworked you, and in return, you were always loyal. I want to compensate for that somehow." He offered to pay me retroactively for that year I worked for free. I accepted, but not for me. I used the money to create a small scholarship fund for children of housekeepers so they could study, in honor of all the women like me who sacrificed everything for their children. Daniel was deeply moved when he found out. "Mom, that money was yours, you worked for it." "And I am using it in the way that makes me happy," I replied. "I am using it to give other people the opportunities I gave you. But this time, with the hope that they value them more." 2 months ago, something unexpected happened. Daniel met Jessica, a public school teacher who also worked an extra job at a coffee shop on weekends to supplement her income. She was simple, genuine, and was not impressed with facades. When Daniel tried to impress her by telling her about his previous life, she cut him off. "I do not care who you were," she said. "I care who you are now." Daniel brought her to meet me, nervous. "Mom, this is Jessica. She's important to me." Jessica hugged me warmly without any trace of judgment or superiority. "Mrs. Sarah, Daniel told me everything. About his mistakes, about you, about how you had the courage to do the right thing even being difficult. You are an inspiration." For the first time, I felt my son was with someone who really saw him. Not the facade, not the money potential, but the real man, fallible and trying to improve. My 61st birthday was completely different from the previous one. Daniel showed up with Jessica bringing a simple cake they made themselves. Mrs. Grace came with the church crafts group. Chloe and Julia also showed up. It was not fancy. It had nothing ostentatious. But when I looked around my small living room filled with people who genuinely cared about each other, I felt rich, richer than any money could make me feel. Daniel made a toast. "A year ago, I was at my worst moment. I had lost everything and I was destroyed. And this woman here," he pointed to me with tears in his eyes, "could have rejected me. I deserved it. But she did something harder. She loved me enough not to save me. She loved me enough to let me fall, to let me learn." He turned to me. "Mom, for years I treated you as if you were worth nothing, but the truth is, I was worth nothing. You were always incredible, strong, dignified, hardworking. I was the one who was too blind to see it. Today I do not have much to give you. I do not have money. I do not have status. But I have something I never had before. I have character, and I learned that from you." There were no dry eyes in the room. "So thank you," he continued. "Thank you for not giving up on me even when I gave up on you. Thank you for loving me enough to let me fall. And thank you for teaching me finally what really matters in life." That night, after everyone left, I sat with Daniel on the balcony. It was a clear night with visible stars, a rarity in the city. "Are you happy now?" I asked him. He thought for a moment. "You know, I am not sure happiness is the right word. I have peace. I wake up in the morning and I am not afraid of being discovered, of being exposed. I look in the mirror and recognize the person I see. And I have hope, real hope in a future built on solid foundations, not on lies. That is more than happiness," I said. "That is fulfillment. And you, Mom, are you happy?" I thought about the question. A year ago, I would have said no. I was alone, abandoned, with a son who was ashamed of me. But now, I am, I replied honestly, because I discovered that being a mother is part of who I am, but it is not everything. I am Sarah. I am a woman who survived decades of hard work, who raised a son alone, who had the courage to do the right thing even when it hurt. I am a woman who has friends, hobbies, dreams of her own. And yes, I am still your mother, but now on different terms." Daniel held my hand. "Thank you for not giving up. On yourself, I mean for not losing yourself completely in me." I squeezed his hand back. I almost got lost, but I discovered it is never too late to find oneself again. Today, when I look back, I regret nothing, not even the sacrifices I made for Daniel. They came from love, although misguided, nor for having exposed him. It was the greatest act of love I could do. Because sometimes loving someone means letting them face the consequences of their actions. Daniel is not perfect now. He still makes mistakes. He still has difficult days. But he is trying, genuinely trying to be a better person. And that is all I ever wanted. As for me, I learned that my value is not in how much I sacrificed, but in who I am. I learned that setting limits is not a lack of love, it is self-love. I learned that being a mother is important, but it is not my only identity. And I learned that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is not our sacrifice, but our courage to let them find their own path. Now, if you like this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part left you with your mouth open. Oh, and do not forget to become a member to access exclusive videos that I do not publish here. I will wait for you there.